it's Aman Gill. Welcome to another episode on Aman Gill Show. Today, you're in for a real treat. Now, if you're excited about learning and you want to tap into the power of the mind and you want to reframe how you can handle your challenges, then you're in the right space. And this is something that will resonate with you. Carly Pepin is an international speaker and consultant specializing in human behavior. Based out of Los Angeles, California, she travels to share the powerful message that no matter what your story, your line of work, what part of the world you're from, all people struggle with our own perceived flaws and voids. Welcome, Carly.
Hi, so great to be here.
Yeah, so nice to see you. And I'm so glad that you were able to make it today and have this conversation with me and the audience, because you have such a powerful story.
Yeah.
And I like to share that because the first time I met you and you told, and I went to your class, and I just like, I need to spend more time with this person. How about let's go back a little bit about your history, what's your background, where you're from.
Okay, well, I was actually born and raised in Southern California, the Los Angeles area. And I came from a family that was pretty cool. Like my dad, he was an entrepreneur. My mom, she was also an entrepreneur at heart and supported my dad in his business. And he was in the film industry. And we actually started out middle class, and I got to see what it took for my dad to take a business from a small business to a large business. So that was really inspiring, a bit challenging as well, but also very inspiring. And I had the opportunity to have, many options for education and different avenues. I could have been in the film industry, but I chose not to actually take that route, which was interesting. I think my dad also had a little bit of hope of me getting into it, but there's other avenues that were more inspiring to me that I tried to pursue.
So what were those things? Because now you're in the limelight with your dad. You have these options that you can actually, I would say, like you could be one of those entitled children. You have everything in your silver platter.
Those particular things, it wasn't something that inspired me. At that time in my life, fashion was everything to me. I had been researching fashion since I was about 13 years old. So you've got a 13-year-old begging her mom and convincing and selling her parents on actually getting international fashion magazines. And I had hundreds of dollars worth of magazines coming in every month. And I would look at runways and clothes, and I just loved fashion. So when it came time for the opportunity to go to school, I had a really hard time in school as well, couldn't get through it. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to give it a try. And I had an opportunity. An opportunity came from a friend of mine who said, there's a fashion designer who needs an executive assistant. And do you want to give it a try? And I thought, you know what? I'll do it. I saw my dad work his way up. So that's where I took my dad's wisdom, that you can work your way up from the bottom to the top. And I saw him work his way up. So I thought I'd just give it a try. And that's where I started to really dive into doing what I loved instead of kind of what was handed to me, and learning how to work for what I wanted.
And you saw that it does take hard work to get so much time, and you have to commit to be there. So what was that? Like, you were in the fashion designing, you were doing that. Why did you stop?
I started to have a lot of internal struggles. I was suffering with a lot of image issues, self-confidence issues. So I had body dysmorphia. My perception of what I looked like was not what I actually am. So I was really hard on myself, and self-confidence. I had anxiety all the time. I didn't really know what was going on. So the personal issues started to become a big problem. I had an eating disorder. I even was doing a little bit of self-harm. So there's a lot going on internally, and I was sad. I was just sad all the time. I couldn't figure it out. The fashion industry definitely has its ups and downs. It definitely has its stressors, but also, I could see that I loved what I did, and there was the creative aspect as well. So I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. That's my perception and what I felt. So at a certain point, I completely blamed Los Angeles. I thought it was the entire city, which anyone from LA probably has done that from time to time as well. And I thought, okay, I think I just need to move out of LA. And at that point, I had gone to Australia. I had done some traveling, and I thought, Australia is the spot. So as far away from LA apparently as I could go. And it wasn't until I moved out there that all of my stressors and distractions were gone, that I realized that it wasn't anything outside of me, but it was everything inside. And that's when I really started to know that, hey, there's some work to be done and I've got to figure out something.
That's still you. How did the moving the space from LA to Australia made you realize that?
Well, at first I thought, I was stressed out. Even I had some friends and I thought, if I'm not around them and I'm not taking care of them, then I'll be able to do what I love and I'll feel free and I won't feel stressed by even the men in LA. I was like, oh, the men in LA, no one's hitting on me because it's Los Angeles, and just so many great men in LA. That is not the truth. And so I was convinced that if I moved to this country, that my whole life would shift. And when I moved, nothing shifted. And when everything that was painful was gone, all the people, all the situations, all the experiences, and I realized I'm still in pain. I still am depressed. I still have anxiety. I still have this part of me that is like questioning, do I want to be alive? Do I want to be here? And I realized, hey, it's not actually anything on the outside. You've got to figure out what's going on the inside.
So it kind of gave you the little bit of that moment of like, I need, because to look into myself.
Yes.
Because in LA, you probably in such a busy life and being surrounded by the people. So you never really got that chance to reflect inside of yourself.
No.
So when you were in Australia, that's when you got a chance. So how did you go from there? What changes did you make, and how? I know you are in the photography. I have seen your pictures. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm just wondering why you're not doing that. But I totally understand. But how did you move from there to where you are today? Because you're now an inspirational speaker. You're
Yes.
a coach. You're a leader. Like, how did that come? Like, how does that shift happen?
It happened, you want to say by chance, but it's also, in my perception, by destiny, where I'm sitting there and I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. And I had just gotten off the phone with a friend of mine. Unfortunately, I had some friends who were quite older than me. So she was 55 at the time. And she, with her wisdom, said, stay. I've been through so much. Stay, stick it out, give yourself a couple months and call me after that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And about a week or two later, I was at a yoga class, which my friend took me to, kicking and screaming, which I love now. It's hysterical. And my car stalled and I needed to wait to get a jump. So I stood outside the yoga class and I looked at the bulletin board, and I remember looking up and seeing this flyer. I don't ever look at the bulletin boards. And I saw this flyer for a coach. And she had listed that she works with people with eating disorders, and everything that she listed is the things that I felt internally. But the bottom, what she wrote, hit me the hardest, where she said, and now I'm free from it all. And I'd gone to so many different therapists and psychologists, and I've gone to eating disorder specialists and the groups, and they had all told me that it's something that I would have to live with forever. So when she said she was free from it permanently, I called her, kind of checked in a little bit because you got your skepticism, and I signed up. And she started working with me in regards to perceptions and how the universe kind of responds to our perceptions and universal laws. And that changed my world and everything started to shift. So after that, my anxiety started to shift. I got off my anxiety medication very quickly.
Wow.
So it took me about a week, whereas in the past, I couldn't get off of it before. And I remember the minute that I decided I wanted to be a teacher was sitting in a session with her, and she started reflecting on some of the things that I was saying and how she was integrating, kind of the lessons she was getting from me and what she was teaching into her life. And I asked her, and I was like, wait a minute. So when you teach me, you're growing. And she's like, yeah. And it light bulb. And I thought, wait a minute, you get paid to grow?
You get paid to learn,
you
right?
get paid to grow and learn? I was like, this is a job? And she goes, yeah. And she had a big smile on her face. And I go, sign me up. I was like, who's your teacher? Where do I get certified? Sign me up. And that was it. I was sold.
And in that, it's so beautiful how you just told me your story. And there's something you really picked on, something about the universal law,
yes.
Right? Because we are always looking for things, and these are signals we don't pay attention to. These are, again, the struggles that are we having, and this is how you tap into your mind,
yes.
Right? You're not looking, but when you put your mind and you put your faith into something that you want to change, as universal, you will see these signs and you will see these signals that are in front of you. Like you looked up to the bulletin board. You didn't realize that one tag, right? So you know you have to call because you have already put that in the universe. Like, you know, this is what I love. Like the beauty of tapping into your mind and the universe and how you just explained it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. From there, you go into the coaching and you took learning and...
Yes. That's when I started to study. That's when I started to study. And I started to take courses with some other international coaches, consultants, speakers. And, you know, you start bit by bit. You learn a piece here and you teach it. You teach what you know and you let it grow. And then there would be times when I would get stuck in my own life and I would be like, I need more. I need more. And I would find a new teacher and I would study something new and I'd be like, great, done, got it. And then I'd get stuck again. I'd be like, I need more. I need more. And the beautiful part I've realized about this industry and being able to teach and consult and help people with their own perceptions is that it's never ending opportunity to grow and learn. So every time I get stuck, which is just life and completely normal, and I get stuck all the time at different levels because I want to grow, I want to advance, I get the opportunity to go learn from either someone who I'm already studying with or someone new. And then I can take that knowledge back to my clients and who I work with. And it's kind of just been how I've been functioning and working my company. And the more I move up, the more my clients move up. Yeah. And I love it. Yeah.
So what was your biggest challenge going through that learning?
I got humbled by a lot of fantasies on how business could or should be. I got sold a fantasy even by my first teachers that it was easy to create clients. It was easy to create a business. And I got out there and I realized it was so hard. So there was a certain point where I went really broke. And I could have gone to my parents for help. But I just remember thinking, if you do this, you'll go back to help from them all the time. And this is your opportunity to like take that next step and just grow up and grit through it. And so there was a time when I made a very, very low income. It was about $12,000 like for the year, which is not much. And I had to figure it out. And that was hard. That was really hard, but I smashed a lot of my own perceptions. I got really humbled. I got really grateful, and I learned so much from that. And I wouldn't take it away for the world because it was that particular instance and situation that taught me that there's so much more to learn when you're growing a business and growing a practice outside of just, it doesn't matter if you're the best teacher in the world. Well, I don't care if you don't know how to speak, if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't know how to connect with people, if you don't know how to sell, you know, if you don't know how to really ask them the right questions, like, you're asking questions. If you can't do that, you're in a lot of trouble. Yeah. So it kind of shifted my education from just doing the personal development and the study about human behavior to also diving into marketing and business and all these other aspects as well. And just, like I said, cutting the fantasy that it's easy. It's easy in the sense where I love it so much that I'll just do whatever it takes to get there. But the challenge is that it takes a lot. And so if you're not diving into something that's really important to you or something that you love, you're going to get defeated and deflated when you start to fail and those challenges come in. Whereas if you're doing something you love, even when you get slammed like that, you're like, I can figure this out. I could do this. I could get to the next step.
You have done so much studying on human behavior, right? So what's the power of balanced perspectives?
Okay. The biggest power of having your balanced perspective is if you perceive anything is more good than bad, then we admire it, we love it, we seek it, and we run towards it. But remember that you're running away from the opposite thing. The thing that you perceive is more bad than good. So for example, if you had a parent who was really verbally critical growing up, you're going to seek partners and friends and all these other people who are not verbally critical to you. You're going to run from that particular behavior without actually seeing the balance in how important that is, because verbal criticism is also one of our greatest tools. Now, I have a session with one of my coaches, and I'm paying a lot of money for him to sit there and dig into me and criticize me for an hour. You know, and I told him, I said, don't fluff it up. I was like, I'm not paying you to fluff it up. I'm paying you to give me feedback. Criticism is feedback. If we run from that and we try to seek only praise, we realize that, you know, when we get praised too much, we get over supported. We're not pushing ourselves to go anywhere. Kids, they get dependent when there's too much praise, whereas the criticism is actually also what makes us strong. So having a balanced perspective on the things that we perceive are negative won't keep us from fearing it, running it, having it run our lives internally, and we won't seek a fantasy in a world like it doesn't exist, because no matter who I talk to, there's nobody that's been able to get rid of those particular challenges or challenges in general. So knowing how they serve us and having a balanced perspective on what that does for us helps us to actually use it as a power instead of let it overpower us.
Yeah, and that's why, because I went to that course with you when you were teaching, and that's where I learned, like, even your worst enemy, you think, the people who criticize and like they force you to bring your inner strength out, because they made you look beyond your own expectations, because if they wouldn't have done it, you have never forced yourself to go to that. Right? So I agree to that, because you know your potential, but when it doesn't matter if the human says it or the universe put hard times on you, which situation you are, when you're pushed to do something out of your comfort zone, that's when you know the real potential.
Yes.
Right? So it could be criticism. Somebody's criticism could be actually a push to go out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
So how does one decide what to dedicate their life to? Like, how do you decide that?
That's a great question. The amazing thing is you're already spending your time and your energy and your money doing exactly what you love. People who think they don't even have a purpose, or they question if they have one, or are they on purpose, their life demonstrates what's most important to them. It's their judgment on whether or not that's important compared to the world outside of them that's actually preventing them to see their own genius. And a great example is, sometimes we see it even with moms. Like a mom could say, well, I'm just a mom. Well, you're not just a mom. Eleanor Roosevelt, she's a mom. She's a powerful mom. She wanted to have world leaders, Kennedys, right? There's all of these people that are really powerful mothers. So that's a big one that I see, that sometimes people think just being a mom isn't enough.
No.
And sometimes it's something even as simple as learning and growing. Like there was a time when I perceived, well, how am I going to make money learning and growing? And then you realize, hey, that's important to a lot of other people as well. Beauty is another really beautiful example where some people say, well, I have a really high value on maintaining my beauty and keeping myself beautiful. Well, there are individuals who pay a lot of money to learn from you. And you see it even now on YouTube, where all these people are coming forth and teaching people about beauty and skincare and health and everything. And that is valuable to people. So if you can see what you demonstrate in your life, what you spend your time with, what you spend your money on the most, where you have the most energy, what energizes you the most, look in there and see where there's a need for it in the world and start to put it out there.
So let's go back to when you were talking about before you went to Australia, and you were in the photography, and you started from an assistant. How did you move up, and how much did you grow?
So much. And when I started at a fashion design company in Los Angeles, and I had the opportunity to work as his executive assistant. I had no fashion background. I had nothing behind me. I had a company with my mom before, which we had actually closed down just because we weren't getting along, and my mom's one of my best friends. So we decided this isn't worth it. And I moved on, she moved on, which is perfection. We got to be friends again. But in that time, that is what the person who hired me saw. And they're like, she could run a company. She could have a business. I want her here. Because the fashion industry is not all that it seems. It's quite challenging. Everything is due last month, and things are just go, 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 go. And the actual environment can be quite challenging as well. Like there's sometimes yelling and screaming. So all rules go out the window in the fashion industry. And I know it's not like this at every company, but definitely at the companies I've had the opportunity to work at, it's been like that. So all rules go out the window, everything kind of changes, and you really got to show up. Now, when I started there, I started as his assistant. We worked at this design table, and it was just one long table. It wasn't any classic desk at all. So the head designer sat here, and I was working for him. And then the marketing manager sat over here, and she's the one who hired me. And I got to a point where I ran out of stuff to do. And I looked at her and I was like, I need something to do. I'm just sitting here. What do I do? Can I help you? I started to help her. And she started to teach me about marketing and photography. And I started to help her with her retail stores and all those properties. We were doing uniform design on the side. And all of a sudden I was working for her more than the owner. So she took me under her wing. Eventually, after working for her for some period of time, they promoted me to marketing manager there, which was very cool. So I started to get to be in charge of the photo shoots and the creative direction. And, you book and hire all the models and the production and finding photographers and putting catalogs out and advertising campaigns. And it transferred all into that. When I got tired of working at that company, I wound up working for the photographer that we did the shoots for. And I started to manage his studio and do the production for his photo shoots, which was for other ad campaigns and celebrities and in the music industry and fashion. Again, very challenging. Everything's due last week, ups and downs in many different ways, but really grateful for the opportunity to have been pushed so hard, to have learned so much. I can't imagine having the business I have today without having the basically sometimes unrealistic expectations put on me in those positions. So I was there for a while and eventually I got burnout. I just got burnt out by the environment and kind of those crazy ups and downs and all the things that I was challenged doing. Like it was challenging sometimes for me to force people to push them in a certain way of the job, or the negotiations and the budget cuts. Those were really hard for me, just cutting down talent because everyone was so talented. And I was like, oh, but I have to cut your rate. And that was actually one of the hardest things for me to do. And after that, I went back to that individual who first hired me at the fashion company, started working at a uniform company. And we did high-end uniforms for 5-star hotels. And it was also really beautiful pieces. So still in the realm of fashion. But again, I wasn't inspired. Like I was there and all the chaos was gone. And don't get me wrong, there were still times when, you get the project and get it done. But during the lulls, I was bored. And in that boredom, that's when you start to feel like the depression come in and the stress and what am I doing with my life and questioning it. And that's when I knew I had to make a change. I knew I had to do something and I knew it had to be big.
The other question, how do you decide the purpose of your path in? Because for you, your father being in the film industry, and he's one of the founders of the indie film scenes from LA, and having that connections, even with going in the photography, like you could have been in that field only, but you could have been very high where you would have really loved it. But how did you come to that decision that you don't want to take that?
I think one of the great things that my parents have done for me is they have nurtured my many hobbies, which have been many. And I can see how that has been quite challenging for them because I have bounced around from so many different things and wanted to try so many different things. They've given me permission to do that, which I'm really grateful for.
That is such an important thing that when your parents give you the permission, because I think a lot of people will struggle with when their parents have these expectations and the child wants this, and then they get caught in the middle because they do not know which one to go. And having the support of the parents, you know what, that is so important.
Yeah.
That is so important. And you just touched on the very important part because that actually...
That was huge for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had to let my audience know, because that is important, because their parents are watching this. They need to know that what the children's minds are for, like what their desires are. It's not something that they wanted, right? Because we are, as parents, your expectations from your children are different than the children's expectations from themselves.
What we actually want. Yeah. And they were great at, I guess, tapping into that and listening to what I wanted. And they also paid attention to what I was doing. They held me accountable too on any fantasies that I had. Because I did have a fantasy. At one point in the film industry, I was like, Dad, I want to do pyrotechnics because fire is cool. And my dad was like, Carly, that's not the best thing for you. And he had to sit down and tell me all the truths and reality about being in pyrotechnics. And I was like, okay, that makes sense, Dad. So there's that dynamic too, that they pay attention to what's important to me. And they knew fashion was important. And they also saw that I wasn't doing well in school and I wasn't being inspired at school. And they saw that I was willing to work. So I think that's another part where they were supportive of me, even though I wasn't going to college, even though I wasn't studying. Since my dad didn't go to college and he worked his way up, he also could see that that was a possibility. And he saw I had it in me to actually take that path. So they did support me in that as well.
That's such a good point. You don't need to have the education. You have to have the drive to do what you're doing, to get to that level of success without having it. How many people, like we know successful people who are successful and out there, but they didn't have any. Bill Gates.
Yes.
Dropped out. Like, we have people around us,
Yeah.
right? So many people, successful people we have around. Doesn't mean they were any less intelligent.
And I love that you share that too. It's so important because Bill Gates is not short of studying.
No.
I'm not short of studying.
No.
When you're inspired to learn, you don't need to sit in a school environment to do it. And whatever anyone is inspired to do right now, they're learning it anyways, whether they're at school or not. Another way to see what your purpose is what do you learn naturally? What are you going out? What are you seeking? What are you studying without anyone even telling you to do it? School, if school could have shown me, like even math, how math could help me understand universal laws in human behavior, I would have been very engaged. Because even present day, just so I could read a book, Principia, I really want to read it. It's supposed to be a math book that brings you to tears of gratitude. I can't read it fully unless I understand math to a certain degree. So I thought, I'm going to take math again.
Yeah.
And I'm more inspired to do it now. But if schools can link to children, and even parents can link to children, how if a kid loves hockey, like how taking math is going to help them with their hockey, a kid will show up inspired to learn math. Like how will history help them with that? And the kid will show up so inspired to learn it, and if we don't understand that as humans and we don't see it on the way to our purpose, which to a kid could even be video games, then we see it as in the way. We don't want to do it. And we're done.
When you relate something that you're struggling and you relate to something good hobby that you really enjoy, that thing that becomes that much more fun. And I'm hoping the school's future, how they teach is not a traditional way of teaching. They will go around. I know way of studying is changing, and I'm hoping that happens in school too, where you're actually learning real learning, not just doing math like how we were taught.
Yes.
Right? It's amazing. Yes. You can do so many things, but then there's something behind us that we procrastinate.
Yes. So many people judge themselves for procrastinating, but when we're not doing something, it's actually simply because it's not important to us. It's not valuable. And we often judge ourselves that we have to or should do it. When we hear in our head, I should, I have to, I need to, I must, that's language that indicates that you're not actually doing something that's inspiring to you, but you're doing something that you saw in someone else that you think works, and you perceive that the way they do it is better than yours. When you sit down and you say, I would love to do this, I want to do this, I'm inspired to do this, then those are things that are in line with you. And money is a really good example. You hear so many people say, I should save money. I need to save money. But those people actually don't have a value on money. When they put money in a bank account, it doesn't make them feel wealthy to the degree that it makes them feel wealthy to actually purchase something in their value system. Sometimes it's personal development. Sometimes it's fashion or cars or whatever. So it's so important to understand what's important to you so that when you see, hey, I'm not doing something, it's not because you suck at it. It's not because you're bad. It's not because you don't know enough. It's just because it might not be as important to you as you thought. Who are you comparing yourself to?
Thank you for watching. And thank you, Carly, for coming. But Carly and I are going to continue our conversation. If you want to watch the full conversation, please visit me on my website, amangill.com. Thank you for watching. Click subscribe and hit the notification button to check out more on our content. We're going to continue this conversation on amangill.com.